a habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to be performed more or less automatically. So you can do it pretty much on autopilot. But another way to think about it, and I think this is a useful way to define a habit, is that as you go through life, you face different problems. And some of those problems are big and some of them are small, like you need to tie your shoes. And whenever you face a problem, your brain starts looking for solutions to that. And as you come across solutions to the recurring problems in life, you start to automate those. And so every morning you wake up and you put your shoes on and you got this little problem that you need to solve. And pretty soon, after you tie your shoes 100 times or 500 times or 1,000 times, you can do it pretty much without thinking. And so that's another way of thinking about habits, is that they're kind of these like automatic solutions we fall into for whatever the recurring problems are we face.
Right. Behavior that becomes habituated.
Yeah. And, you know, like the interesting thing about this is you don't necessarily have to have the same habit to solve a recurring problem. Like if you come home from work each day and you feel stressed and exhausted, one person might play video games for an hour, and that's a way to resolve that problem. So they get in the habit of doing it, and they just walk over to the controller, they don't even think about it. Another person might go for a run for 20 minutes or meditate for 10 minutes. A third person might smoke a cigarette. And all of those are just solutions to that problem that you're facing. And that, I think, is another powerful lesson, is that your original habit is not necessarily the optimal one. And once you realize that, then it kind of becomes your responsibility to become a little more aware of what those habits are, and then think about, can you shape them or design them?
Right. And so a habit is the physical manifestation. It's a behavior, the physical manifestation of your psychological makeup, your emotional body, and your conscious or unconscious mind, right? Like habits flow from what is already built inside of us on some level, right? So to kind of deconstruct what a habit is, how to change it, what's a good habit, what's a bad habit, how to flow from bad to good, it demands, I would imagine, and you're the expert here, a real analysis of like how our brains function. You have to look at psychology, you have to look at neurology, you have to look at the science and understand the human mechanism in its holistic form.
I think that's true. And you bring up a really interesting point, and one that I wanted to answer or think about in the book, because so in the book I lay out this 4-stage model for how habits work. And the reason the second stage is there, it's all about craving and prediction. In other words, like you come across a cue or some kind of context and then you interpret it in a certain way. And that's where we're getting to this point that you're just making, which is that the habit only comes after. The habit is the behavior that follows your prediction or your interpretation of how you should act in a given context. And, for one person, they might see their couch as the place where they read for an hour each night. And so their interpretation of that context is, I should open up a book. For another person, they might see the couch as the place where they turn on Netflix for an hour and eat a bowl of ice cream. And so that's a different interpretation of the same physical cue. And so in that way, habits kind of follow. They're this lagging measure of how you predict you should respond to the different contexts in your life.
Yeah. And I like how you couch it in the context of habits being a solution to a problem. They're not the problem themselves necessarily. They're a reflection of what's going on inside of us. They're a solution to whatever emotional state it is. I mean, a habit is a way of adapting to an environment or solving a problem.
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah, it's a way of solving a recurring problem. You come over it again and again, and then pretty soon you're falling into that pattern.